Starlady. This story has no hero in it. It's got Harry Hal in it, and Golden Boy, and Janie Small, and Maylis, and some other people who lived on this rock. Plus Crawny and Stumblecat and the Marquis, who do well enough as villains. But it hasn't got a hero. Well, unless you count Harry Hal. On the day it all began, he was out late, wandering far from the plaza in the dock section near the up end of the concourse. It was night cycle. The big overhead light panels had faded to black, and here the wall lights were few and dim. Elsewhere, just down the concourse, the Silver Plaza was alive with music. Multicolored strobes were hashing, and joy smoke was belching from the air ducts. But Hal walked in darkness, through silent halls full of deserted loading trucks, past shadowed stacks of freight. Here near the docks, this rock was much as the Imperials had known it. The corridors near the plaza were all shops and disfigured plastic. The walls of the concourse were covered with boasts and slogans and obscenities. But here, the only marking on the shining duralloy were the corridor numbers that the men of the Federal Empire had left. Harry Hal knew the business was elsewhere, but he'd given up on business that night, and he was here. Which was why he heard the whimper. Why he followed it is something else again. The Star Slums were full of whimpers, plus screams and shouts and pleading. Harry Hal was a child of the Star Slums, and he knew the rules. But that night, he broke them. In the black of the cross corridor, up against some crates, he found Crawny and his men, with their victims. One victim was a youth. He stood in shadow, but Hal could make out a slender, graceful body. And his eyes. His eyes were immense. With him was a young woman, or maybe just a girl. She was backed up against the wall, under a yellow wall light. Her face was pale, scared, and dark hair fell past her shoulders. So clearly she was off-world. Crawny confronted them, a short, slim man with black and red skull stripes and a mouth full of teeth that stuck out too far. He dressed in soft plastic, and he worked for the Marquis. Hal knew him, of course. Crawny was unarmed, but the pair with him, the silent giants with heads painted black, each of them carried a dark baton, and they waved them gracefully in front of them. Sting sticks. They kept the victims cornered. So Harry Hal, unnoticed, knelt in darkness and watched it all. It was a bleak episode, but one he'd seen before. There were soft threats from Crawny, delivered in a mild, slurring voice. There were pleadings from the woman. There was a lightning pass from the sting stick, and a scream from the boy. Then whimpers as he laid crumpled on the floor. Then another sting stick pass, a touch to the head, and the whimpering stopped. Finally, there were 2 rapes. Crawny, amused, just watched. Afterwards, they took everything and left her there, crying beside the boy. Harry Hal waited until they were long gone, until even the echoes of their passage had faded from the corridor. Then he rose and went to the woman. She was naked and vulnerable. When she saw him, she gave a small cry and struggled to get up. So he smiled at her. That was another of Hal's trademarks, his smile.
"Hey now, Starlady," he said. "Easy, Hal won't hurt you. Your friend might need help."
Then, while she watched through wide eyes, he knelt down near the boy and rolled him under the wall light with one hand. The youth was blacked out from pain, but otherwise unhurt. But Hal didn't notice that much. He was staring. The youth was golden. He was like no boy Hal had ever seen. His skin was soft cream gold. His hair was shimmery silver white. The ears were an elf's, pointed and delicate. The nose small and chiseled. The eyes huge. Human? Hal didn't know, but he knew it didn't matter. Beauty was all that mattered. Beauty and glowing innocence. Harry Hal had found his golden boy. The woman had dressed in what Crawny had left her of her clothing. Now she stood. "What can you do?" she said. "I'm Janie Small from Rhiannon, our ship." Hal looked up at her.
"No, Starlady," he said. "No ship no more. Crawny got the name tabs. The Marquis'll sell it. Some insider will be Janie Small from Rhiannon, see? Happens, well, every day. Starlady should have stayed on the concourse."
"But," the woman started, "we have to go to someone. I mean, the man with the striped head. He said he'd show us the good stuff. He hired the other 2 for us as bodyguards. Can you take us to the police?" Her voice was even, quiet, and the tear tracks on her face were dry now. She recovered fast. Hal admired her.
"Starlady landed on this rock," he said. No police here, nothing. Should have hired a real bodyguard. Crew would have given you a steer as usual. Crawny hit instead. Starlady wasn't Promethean, wasn't insider, wasn't protected. Probably 4-class passage, right?
He paused. She nodded.
So, right. Crawny wanted tabs, Starlady was stupid, easy hit.
Hal glanced down at Golden Boy.
With you?
He asked. Yes, no, she shook her head. Not precisely. He was on the ship. No one could understand him, and no one seemed to know him or where he was from. He started following me around. I don't know much about him, but he's good, kind. What's going to happen to us now? Hal shrugged.
Help get Golden Boy over Hal's shoulder. Come with. To home.
Harry Hal's home. A 4-room compartment on a cross corridor near the concourse, just off the Silver Plaza. It was good for trade. The door was heavy duralloy. Inside was a large square chamber with a low couch along one wall and opposite a built-in kitchen. Above the couch were racks of books and tapes. For a star slummer, Hal was an intellectual. A big plastic table filled most of the room, and closed doors led off to the bedrooms and the waste cube. A glowing globe sat in the center of the table, sending pink reflections scuttling across the walls as it pulsed. Harry Hal dumped Golden Boy, still out, on the couch, then sat down at the table. He pointed to a second chair, and Janie sat too. And then, before either of them could say anything, a bedroom door opened and Malis entered. Malis was very tall, very regal, sleek legs and big breasts, and a hard face with small green eyes. She painted her head bright red to let people know what she was. What she was one of Hal's girls. At the moment, she was his only girl. She stopped in the door to her bedroom, studied Janie and Golden Boy, then looked at Hal. Spin, she said. So Harry Hal spun it.
Starlady got hit, he told her. Crawny did a bodyguard grab tab, threw in a rip and rape.
He shrugged. Her face grew harder. Harry Hal scoped it all, right? Did nothing? She sighed. So?
Seal it, Malis,
Hal told her. He turned back to Janie Small, smiled his smile.
Starlady knows what comes now?
He asked. Janie wet her lip, hesitated. Finally she spoke. If there really are no police, I guess we're stuck here for a while. Hal shook his head.
For good. Better face that or you'll get hurt. Easy to get hurt on this rock, Starlady. Not like Rhiannon. Look.
With that, his left hand reached across his body, grabbed a corner of his heavy green cape, and flipped it back over his shoulder. Then he took his right arm by the wrist and lifted it onto the table. Janie Small did not gasp. She was a tough woman, Janie Small. She just looked. Harry Hal's arm wasn't really much of an arm. It bent and twisted in half a dozen places where an arm ought not to bend. And it was matchstick thin. The skin was reddish black, the hand a shriveled claw. Hal clenched his fist as it lay there, and the arm trembled violently. Finally, when she'd looked enough, he reached over again with his left hand and took it off the table. Then he smiled at her.
Easy to get hurt,
he repeated. She chewed her lip. Can you get it replaced? He laughed.
Probably, Starlady, on Rhiannon. Probably Prometheans could too. But Hal's here on this rock. Forgot a lot during the collapse. No, not even if Hal was an insider. And Hal is no insider. Harry Hal is a star slum pimp.
Janie's eyes widened. I don't care, she said. You're better than those others. You helped us. Behind him, Malis laughed. Hal ignored her.
Hey now, Starlady, he said, smiling. Listen and learn, quick. Star slummers don't help anyone lest they get a slice. Hal is no hero. He didn't even try to stop that rip and rape, right? But Hal is offering you good and straight, so listen to him spin. Starlady and Golden Boy can stay here till day cycle. When the lights come on, they gotta pick. 1, go out and take their chances and good luck. 2, he cocked his head questioningly, they stay and work for Hal. He lifted his right arm then, struggling and trembling, without using his left. It hit the table with a thump. Malis was laughing again. Harry Hal was good with a no-knife, he said, patting his arm with his good hand. Still, this. Pick.
Well, I told you he wasn't a hero. Janie's face went baffled at first as she listened to Hal's words. Then, despite herself, she began to cry. Malis kept on laughing, but Hal's smile faded then. He shrugged and shook his head and went to bed. The tears stopped in time and Janie sat alone, watching pink shadows race across the room. After a long time, her gaze wandered to Golden Boy asleep on the couch, and she went to him and curled up on the floor so her face was close to his. She stroked his silvery hair and smiled at him and thought. But of course, she had no choice. When day cycle came, Janie told Hal what she must. He gave her a smile. He did not get one back. "You'll work the Silver Plaza," he told her, as he stood across the table and buckled a plastic belt. "Starlady's fresh and young, and she smells of stars, and that's all good for trade. Malis'll take the concourse. Hal will take you around today and spin out all the rules. Listen." She looked at the couch. "What about the boy?" "Malis," Hal bellowed. When she came, glaring, he gestured. "Stay and feed the Golden Boy. Spin him soft when he blinks, and don't let him fly. Hal's got plans for Golden Boy." He went back into his bedroom. Malis watched the door shut with a sullen expression, then turned on Janie. "Why don't you run, ship girl?" she said. "Run back to your ship. You don't click here, and Harry Hal don't click so good himself. Scope him smart before you root. He isn't all that much. You and Golden Boy will get shoved up an air duct if you believe his wobbly spin." Hal emerged from the bedroom in his black swoop shirt and his cape. "Seal it, redhead," he told Malis. Then to Janie, "First lesson, listen, flow." He reached across his body beneath his cape, and his hand came out holding a finger-sized rod of black metal. "No knife," he said. He did something with his thumb, and suddenly there was a humming, and a foot-long blue haze that stuck out from his fist. "They make them, well, not here. They come on ships. The force blade'll cut anything 'cept Durloy, and it's clean and quick. Hal was good once. Now not so good, but he's still better than most. This is your protection, Starlady. This is why you don't get hit no more. Today, Hal's parading you round the plaza, and the word gets out. Tomorrow, no one touches you." "Sept Marquis," Malis said. Her tone was cutting. "Sept Marquis and Crawny and Stumblecat and any other black skull who wants you. They get you free, Starlady, and they do anything they want with you. And Hal don't do a thing. Right, Harry Hal? Spin that to her." Harry Hal made a palming motion. The ghost blade blinked out, and the black rod vanished beneath his cape. "Dress, Starlady," he told Janie. "Take something from Malis, anything you like, and cut it to size." "Hey now," Malis started, but Hal raised his voice and bowled right over her. "You pick, you get, Starlady," he said. "Keep your hair so they know you work for Hal, but tie something red round your head so they know you work." Afterwards, they left Malis and Golden Boy alone and went out into the corridor, down to the concourse, out towards the plaza. Janie Small wore a red headband and a gossamer yellow dinger and a cool, pale face. She did not talk. Hal did all the talking. Hal, in black and green, who smiled and kept his arm around her. The concourse already was jammed. Hal pulled Janie to a food stall, nodded to the man behind the counter, and they both ate crusty brown breadsticks and cubes of cheese. Janie put her elbows on the counter. Hal put his arm around her, rubbed her shoulder, and pointed at people with his eyes. "That one's a thief," he told her, "and that one pushes dreams. And the other with the wide eyes and the drools, well, that one buys them. And there's another pimp, but his girls are old and baggy. And there's Bad Tanks, who owns a stall out near the plaza. Don't ever eat there, though, 'cause he laces his sticks with a dust to bring in more new dreamers. French is a Joy Smoke merchant. He's quick, but you can trust him. But Gallus don't sell nothing but a spin." They started down the concourse together, past the grimy plastic walls and the countless shops, past fat, half-naked women with shaved red skulls who glared at them resentfully, past staggering youths with sting sticks who gave Hal a wide berth. All the time, Janie Small walked in silence, while Hal kept on his lessons. "The place with the blue curtains is Auguste's," he told her. "He rents you bodyguards that you can trust. But never, never get a guard from Loreg. Worse than Crawny, only half the brains. That fat man with the green stars on his head, he's a pimp. A straight one. If someone gets to me, go to him. Dark Edward pimps too, yes, but don't go near him. He used to be much bigger than he is. Over there you've got yourself religion if you're the kind who likes to mumble in the dark. The guy in the silver swoop suit, he don't have long to live. He talks too loud and he's going to get a sting stick up his ass. They reached the Silver Plaza, a huge open place at the end of the concourse, a ceiling far above that spilled down silver lights, tiers of balconies and shops, welling music all around them. A troupe of dancers whirling in the streets. Hal pushed his way towards them. Janey followed. He watched, smiling. One of the women, a blur of scarlet veils, spun up against him, stopped, and grinned. He reached under his cape and pressed something into her palm. She grinned again and danced away. "What did you give her?" Janey asked, curious despite herself, after they'd elbowed free.
"A coin," Hal said, shrugging. "The dancing clicks for Hal, Starlady. Probably that's another lesson for you. You won't get hit 'cause you're with Hal, right? But you don't hit no one, see? Hal spins straight. The shipmen give steers to pimps who serve up girls without sting sticks."
Suddenly his arm tightened on her shoulder.
"And there," he said, pointing with his chin, "there are 2 more lessons for Starlady, walking right together."
She looked in the direction he'd indicated. A man and a woman were making their way across the plaza slowly. The man was broad-shouldered and blond, dressed in a dark floor-length cloak with heavy gold embroidering. The woman was brown-skinned with kinky black hair and a pale green uniform. Janey was still looking when she heard the voice from behind her.
"The man is one of the leading citizens of this rock," the voice said in a mellow, purring tone. "We call his kind insiders. The woman is an officer of a Promethean starship, of course. I expect that you knew that, dear. And your lesson, I'd guess, was to be that both insiders and Prometheans are treated with deference. They are powerful people."
They turned. The speaker was wearing a Promethean uniform too, but unlike the woman, his was thin and patched. He had nothing else in common with the starship officer, or with anyone else in the crowd. Instead of being hairless, his face and hands were both completely covered with a soft gray fur. His ears were pointed, his nose was black, his eyes feline. He was, in fact, a man-cat.
"Hello, Hal,"
he said in the oddly gentle voice that mocked the swing stick swinging from his belt. Then he smiled at Janey.
"Right now you're full of questions," he said. "I know them all. First, I don't talk like the others because I'm not from this rock, and I have an education. I don't look like the others because I was genetically altered. A game they played with the lowborn on Prometheus, you know. My alterations were not satisfactory, though, so I wound up here. Some of them work, however. I heard Hal's last comment from quite a distance. Now, yes, that should cover it."
He smiled. His teeth were very sharp. Hal did not smile back.
"Janey Small," he said, pointing. "Stumblecat."
Stumblecat nodded. Janey stood frozen.
"You are clearly a starborn," Stumblecat said in cultured tones. "However did you wind up with Hal?" "Starlady was passing through," Harry Hal said sharply. "She hired the wrong bodyguard, listened to Crawny spin, and wound up raped and ripped. Now she's with Hal."
"You always were one to take advantage of a ripe situation, Hal," Stumblecat said. He laughed.
"Well, I'll keep the Starlady in mind next time I'm looking. She might be an interesting change."
Harry Hal was not amused, but he kept from showing it. He shrugged.
"Yours, any time, Stumblecat," he said slowly. "For a spin and a smile, Hal."
Hal's face went dark.
"For a spin and a smile, Stumblecat," he said slowly.
Stumblecat laughed, stroked Janey with a soft furred hand, then turned and left. And Janey, hot eyes glaring, turned on Hal. "I agreed to work for you because you gave me no choice. I don't like it, but I recognize the situation I'm in. There was nothing said about you giving me to your friends." Hal frowned hard.
"And nothing done, either. Listen to the biggest rule, Starlady. Insiders, Prometheans, you scope them good, and give 'em room, and let 'em be customers. Nobody gets you free. 'Cept Black Skulls. Yes, Starlady, like the ones who raped you up. Don't look so white. For them, you do anything. Be nice, charge nothing less they offer to pay. And also for the Black Skull bosses, like the Marquis, who Hal will tell you about. Like Crawny, who hit you. And Stumblecat. Hey now, Starlady, you look shocked. Why? Maylis spun you straight. You knew it. Probably you thought Stumblecat was a good guy, right? 'Cause he talks like you, only better? Well, Starlady just did another stupid. First she hums to Crawny, now to Stumblecat. Next thing you'll be cuddling the Marquis himself. You already got both his lieutenants.
His good hand was pinching her shoulder painfully as he spoke, and people in the crowd were throwing quick looks their way. Janie, furious, spun free. "What about all that protection?" she shouted. "If I don't get even that much, why should I wear this?" She tore off her headband, thrust it at him. Harry Hal stood there, looking down at it. When he spoke, his voice was low.
Maybe you shouldn't, he said, shrugging. Up to you, Starlady. Hal doesn't force no one. He smiled. But he's better than them.
Janie stared at him, saying nothing, holding the red rag out in her hand. Hal looked at the ground and scratched his head. And, in the awkward silence, a third man approached. He was short, heavy, off-world, his clothes were rich, and his eyes moved constantly in a nervous scramble to see if anyone was around. Excuse me, he said, quickly. That is, the man on the ship told me to look for a man with a green cape and, hair." He waited expectantly. Harry Hal looked at him, then at Janie. He said nothing. Her hand fell. She stared at Hal's face, then at the ground, then, finally, at the off-worlder. "Come on," she said at last. Somewhere along the line, her name got lost. Janie Small of Rhiannon was gone, flown away on a ship hardly remembered. She was Starlady, and she did a thriving trade. It wasn't the off-worlders so much, at the first. They came to her no more than any other. It was the star slummers who gave her business, the kids with hand-me-down sting sticks and the whooping swoop suits who caught the scent of the stars. They'd grown up with the shaved skulls, hard-eyed redheads, and they wanted hair and dreams and maybe innocence. They hummed to Starlady. They came to Starlady. And she learned. Yes, she learned. There was a night cycle near the docks when a corridor club got a hold of her. The queen of the club was a blue-skulled dreamer, and the man she hummed to had gone to Starlady. So she stared and smiled and drooled while her 3 underboys stripped their catch and started to play with their sting sticks. But then Harry Hal was there. Starlady had friends all along the concourse, and the friends had seen the grab, and they got to Hal, and he knew the dock section where the club called home. Such a short fight. An underboy swung his sting stick, Hal lifted his humming blue ghost blade, the baton sheared neatly in two, and the club ran. And she learned. Yes, she learned. There was an afternoon at Hal's in the 3rd bedroom, the special one with the canceller that wiped out this rock's gravity grid, but the customer wanted more than free-fall fun. He had a nerve lash, which is like a sting stick, only worse. She screamed and Hal was there, kicking off and floating fast and graceful, bringing his no-knife up and around. Afterwards, they had to turn off the canceller to ground all the droplets of blood. And she learned. Yes, she learned. There was a conference at Hal's one night, and she met Dark Edward with his hot red eyes and his double sting stick and his plans for being emperor again. Plus Fat Molly, who ran a stable of boys. They wanted Harry Hal to join them.
"It's a straight spin, Hal,"
Dark Edward said in a ponderous voice.
"We can hit 'em good, and I'll make you my lieutenant."
He talked, but Hal just shook his head and threw them out. Afterwards, he and Maylis fought for hours. But there came a silver morning 2 weeks later when Crawny and Stumblecat dragged Dark Edward screaming to the center of the plaza. At first, Janie just watched Stumblecat in all his soft-furred clumsiness and noted the lack of feline grace that Hal had told her of. The curious lack that made him a reject from Prometheus and gave him his curious name. Then she saw the Marquis, and she knew what was going to happen. The Marquis had all of Stumblecat's stolen grace. He wore black boots and the robes of an insider, but he was very silent. His skull was silver. It shone in the plaza light. Around it, covering his eyes, was a solid ring of tinted blue-black plastic. While Janie watched, while hundreds watched, he took Dark Edward's double sting stick and turned it on. Crawny and Stumblecat held the victim. The Marquis played for hours. And she never saw Fat Molly after that day either. Oh yes, she learned, and soon she knew the rules. She was Starlady, and Harry Hal was her protection, and she was safer than most around her. The Black Skulls never bothered her. She was beneath them.
The Marquis is stupid,
Hal told her after Dark Edward's death, when she came home early from the plaza.
Dark Edward, well, he was worse, but still. Listen, the Dream Boss clicks, right? The dust comes in on ships, and his men get it quiet, and sell it quiet, and no one knows the Dream Boss, and no one knows how to touch him. Lametta tried, got hit. Hard. Probably the Dream Boss will buy himself inside someday the way he clicks, see? But Marquis, he doesn't click. Too loud. Everybody knows the Marquis. Everybody chills to him. Only he won't never buy his way down inside. The insiders don't want him marching around the ivory halls unless he's got an exotic for them and a quick exit pass. He started with exotics, Starlady. Altars like Stumblecat and a couple of Harangans, Green Gushies, Findy Mind Mutes, that kind. Got all the exotics on this rock, right? The insiders, well, some of them hum sick, but they want to hum bad, and they gotta hum quiet, and they pay a lot. Prometheans come too. The Marquis hums sick himself, but different. He hums to pain and power probably, but mostly pain. Good with the sting stick though, and he's got the exotics. After that, he got a lot of other things. Joy Smoke and Grab Tabs and Ripping, all his now. Exotics are still a big slice. The Marquis has them all. Only, well, he's so loud and it'll kill him. Someday he'll try to hit the Dream Boss or squeeze an insider for quiet money or something. Maybe Stumblecat will take him. Stumblecat spins quieter. Starlady and Hal know he don't like seconds. Hitting Dark Edward in the plaza was just a stupid. The Marquis wants to chill everybody, except it won't click. He was sitting at his table eating as he spoke, his cape thrown back, his claw-like right hand clutching the plate as his left cut and speared with a kitchen knife. Janie sat across from him. In the corner of the room, regarding them with immense blue eyes, Golden Boy sat on the couch. Golden Boy had an easier time of it than Janie. Harry Hal had run boys before, he said, but he wasn't running Golden Boy. Not yet. He just kept saying that he had plans. The youth sat around the compartment all day, eating and staring at people, never saying a word. Somehow he seemed to know what was required of him, whenever something was. Mayless, after mothering him for a week, had finally gotten tired of the way he shrank away in fear whenever she came near him. She clawed him badly with sharpened nails, then ignored him after Harry Hal promised her a taste of no knife if she did it again. Golden Boy's gotta stay pretty,
he told her with his ghost blade in his good hand. She'd been backed up against her bedroom door, looking terrified but oddly ecstatic. That night she and Hal had slept together, the only time since Janie Small and Golden Boy had arrived. Most times Hal slept alone. That first night he tried to sleep with Janie, but she'd pulled away and glared at him. I did it for you all day, and you've got the money, she said. I'm not going to do it with you, too. And he'd let her go and shrugged.
Starlady, you're a strange one,
he said. Then he went to his room by himself. Janie sat by Golden Boy on the couch, looking at his eyes and brushing back his silver hair. Finally, they'd gone to sleep together in the free-fall chamber, arms wrapped around each other as they nestled in the sleep web. Golden Boy simply held her and slept. He knew what was required of him. It was that way every night. Harry Hal tried once more after he'd saved her from the corridor club. Back in the compartment, he'd sat by her on the couch and kept his arm around her until she stopped trembling. Then he got up and went to his bedroom. He paused at the door, favoring her with a smile and one of his cock-the-head questioning looks.
Janie?
No, she said. He shrugged and gave up trying. After all, he wanted Janie, and Janie was long gone. She was Starlady, and she had her Golden Boy. Then one day, when Janie came back from the Silver Plaza, Golden Boy was gone. She looked around the compartment frantically. He'd never left before, but there was no one home but Mayless and a paunchy off-worlder afloat in the freefall room. Mayless glared at her as she stood in the doorframe, but the man just chuckled and said, Well, well, come on in. When he'd left finally, Mayless put on a sheath and came storming and spewing out at her. I'll chill you down good, Starlady, and if Hal don't like it, I'll cut off his cruddled arm. What's the big spin? Golden Boy is gone. So? Hal is out selling him, little girl. Grow up. Janie blinked. What? Mayless snorted in disgust and put her hands on her hips. I spun you straight. Why do you think Harry Hal let Golden Boy sit around all day and powder his ass with dream dust like he was an insider or something? 'Cause Hal clicks right? Is that what you figured? So wrong. Hal was waiting for a big sell. He spun it all out to me. With all those fun boys coming through here every day, sooner or later, word's probably gonna get down inside. That's where Hal wanted it, see? Lots of insiders like little boys, and he knew they'd pay big for a little golden boy with pointy ears and big eyes and silver hair. Only Hal couldn't exactly parade the ivory halls giving out handbills, right? He won't do it, Janie said stubbornly. Golden Boy won't do it. Malis laughed. You warned me, Starlady. You're such a stupid. Listen good, 'cause I'm gonna spin you right. Golden Boy will do exactly what Hal says. You think you learned a lot, but you don't know nothing. Instead of a clear skull, you've got a head full of hair and stars. I think you hummed a Golden Boy, you know? And that's so warm it's boiling. I love him, Janie said with storms flashing across her face. He's kind and gentle and he's never done anyone any harm. And he's a hell of a lot better than anyone else on this rock. But Malis only laughed again. You'll learn, Starlady. Hal don't click, but at least he clicks better than Golden Boy. Listen, I used to hum to Hal once. I had to learn. What, that he uses people? I learned that fast enough, Janie said. She turned and went to the couch and sat down. Malis followed her. No, Starlady, you got it spun up all wobbly and tangled. I thought Harry Hal was a big hero. He was faster with his no-knife than anybody, and he looked good, and he spun big about how he was gonna click. Yes, and little Malis believed it all, except one night after Hal'd been doing too good, there was this knock on the door, right? Crawny. Back then, Hal had me and 2 other girls and a couple boys and some exotics, plus he had some sticks working for him. And he was spinning about a slice of joy smoke. Well, Crawny came to chill him down. The Marquis wanted joy smoke, you see, and the Marquis didn't like Hal having exotics. Well, Harry Hal just laughed at Crawny, and I hummed to that. It was a long time ago, right? And the Marquis wasn't so big, and Hal wasn't so small, and Lametta was even still around. Hal had plans. Except Crawny didn't like being laughed at. A couple cycles later, the Black Skulls grabbed Hal and me and took us down by the docks. Crawny was there, and Stumblecat, and the Marquis. They made me watch while the Black Skulls broke his arm all up, again and again, until he was screaming, right? Then the Marquis just smiled and said, Hey, Hal's arm is broken. He needs a splint. And they splinted it with a sting stick and just stood there and watched him on the floor. Afterward, all the nerves were croddled or something, and Hal wasn't nothing with his no-knife. Everybody left him. His sticks, his girls, everybody. The Marquis took his exotics. Harry Hal had nothing except me. Little stupid Malis. She still hummed to him, and I stayed. I helped him use his other hand, and I thought once he was good again, he'd take his no-knife and go after the Marquis, right? Well, wrong. That's where my spin went wobbly on me, and I learned. Harry Hal was scared, and he still is. He's never dared to get the big again, 'cause the Marquis gives him big chills. Every once in a while, one of the Black Skulls will come by and have me, and they'll never pay, and Hal never does anything. They'll do it to you too, watch. You'll learn, Starlady. You're a stupid if you hum to anyone, or buy anybody's spin, or do anything for anyone but you. Janie waited until the outburst had passed. Then, very quietly, she said, If you gave up on Hal, then why are you still here? Before Malis could answer, the door opened, and Harry Hal and Golden Boy were back. Hal was smiling broadly. He reached under his cape, pulled out a packet, and tossed it on the table. Malis looked at it, grinned, and whistled. Golden Boy clicked good down in the ivory halls, Hal said. Then, startled, he stopped and looked at Janie. She'd gone to Golden Boy and wrapped her arms around him, and now she was fighting not to cry. So things began to click. Down inside, in the ivory halls and the velvet corridors, in the great cool compartments around the central square, the word was loose. And the customers came, sleek blonde men in woven robes, matrons in dragon dresses, adventurous girls in soft plastic. Others sent for Golden Boy, and Harry Hal took him to them, walking the streets inside as if he were born to them. He handled things quiet and smooth, and he sold Golden Boy only for big money. No Star Slum fun boys got their hands on him. Hal had his wide-eyed gold mine reserved for men of taste. And Golden Boy went and did what was required of him. He never spoke, But he seemed to understand, sometimes even without telling him. It was almost like he knew what he was doing. Sometimes the insiders would buy him for a night and Janie would float in her sleep web alone. On one of those nights, Hal returned from the inside by himself, carrying a heavy book under his good arm. He was sitting at the table, poring over the pages, when Janie and a customer returned from the Silver Plaza. He ignored them and kept poring. When the man had gone, Janie came out and looked at him sullenly. "What's that?" she asked. Hal glanced up, smiled.
"Hey, Starlady, come and look. Hal got it for Golden Boy tonight from an insider. It's old, you know, pre-collapse, straight spin."
Janie walked around him to peer over his shoulder. The pages were big, glossy, full of closely packed text and bright illustrations of strange creatures in colorful costumes.
"There's something here, look here, about a race that might be Golden Boys. Look at that picture, Starlady. The same, only the hair is the wrong color. Still, they were a Harangan slave race before the war or the collapse, so probably Golden Boy is a little boshy. Unless..."
He rifled some more pages.
"Here, this part about genetic alterations and cloning and that stuff. The Earth Imperials were trying to clone their best pilots and such, duplicate them. And you had alters like Stumblecat, except he's a defect. See, Starlady, it has this bit about aesthetic alters on old Earth. Pretty boys being worked up. So maybe he's one of those from old Earth. What a spin. This rock hasn't heard from that far in, well, long time. It chills you, right, Janie?"
His enthusiasm was a flood. Janie felt herself smiling at him. "I don't think he's from old Earth," she said. "If he were, he could talk to us. He's probably a Boshi. But I don't really care what he is. He's just Golden Boy."
"Just? Janie, you're positively warm. Listen, he's clicking for us, Starlady. They hum to him down there. They hum high and hot, and probably they're gonna want him down there more, right? But he won't do it less Hal wants it. And Janie, of course. In a while, Starlady, we can buy down inside. All of us, 'cause Golden Boy is Golden Boy, and 'cause Harry Hal is quiet, right?"
"Not quiet enough, Hal," the voice said from the doorway. Stumblecat stood there smiling, his hand on his sting stick. "Not quite quiet enough." He sauntered with the clumsy ease that was uniquely his. Crawny followed, pushing Mayless ahead of him. She stumbled up against the table, reeled, then pulled away towards the bedrooms. Harry Hal closed his book and stood.
"Spin it,"
he said. His face was a guarded blank. "You know it already, Hal," Stumblecat said. Such a soft voice he had, such a civilized purr. "You've known it all along. We told you long ago that we bear you no grudge. You can pimp all you like, girls, boys, anything. But exotics? Well, you know. The Marquis has a sentimental attachment to exotics. He collects them, you might say."
"You've been spinning us wobbly,"
Crawny put in, grinning at Hal and showing off all his teeth.
"But you can straighten out. Just give us your exotic."
"Golden Boy, I believe he's called," said Stumblecat. "Yes," Hal said, "only Golden Boy isn't an exotic. Would Hal spin you wobbly, eh? He's just a human, an alter. Look at the book." He tapped it, offering. "I'm not interested in any books, Hal," Stumblecat said. "An alter is exotic enough for the Marquis. And even if you were right, well, the sad fact is we'd still want him. That much inside business is too tempting."
"You want your other arm croddled?" Crawny said. "Wrong. Then you better hum to us, Hal."
Hal did not move, but Mayless did. She came around the table, grabbed him, shoved him towards them. "Hal," she shrieked. "Hey, this is your chance. Only two of them, and Crawny never carries nothing, and Stumblecat is a clumsy stupid with his stick. Take them!" She pushed him again from behind, and he hesitated, then whirled, and slapped her hard.
"You want to spin me cold, redhead?" he said. "There might be more outside."
Mayless pulled back, said nothing. Stumblecat and Crawny just watched and smiled. Janie frowned. "Hal," she said, "you can't give Golden Boy to the Marquis. You can't do that, Hal. She's right." But Hal ignored her.
"Golden Boy's gone now," he said, turning back to the two men. "He'll be back. Straight spin. You can have him." We'll wait,
Crawny said. Yes, said Stumblecat. And Hal, you haven't treated us very hospitably, you know. Hal's lip trembled.
No. Hal, we'll set you right. Drinks?
Later, said Stumblecat. That wasn't what I had in mind. He walked over to Janey, reached out, and stroked her hair. She shivered. Hal looked at her.
Janey, he said, my star lady, will you...
But she was already gone, with Stumblecat, to the bedroom. Crawny, not to be left out, took Malis. They watched pink shadows run as the globe pulsed. 2 of them, alone together. The insider had brought Golden Boy back at last, and the black skulls who had been outside had taken him. Malis had left too, packing all her things in silence. Now there was Harry Hal and Starlady. She sat there, calm, cold, and watched him and the shadows. This time Hal was crying.
I can't, Janey,
he said over and over in a broken voice.
I can't. He chills me, Star Lady. And I've seen him with the stick, the no-knife. Yes, it's a better weapon, quicker, cleaner. But him, the Marquis, he's too good. Probably Harry Hal could have taken him. He thought he could have. 1-on-1, no knife against Sting Stick. No chance, though. And now he's all croddled. Marquis'll never face him alone anyhow.
You're Harry Hal, Janey said evenly. Even if he could take Marquis once, you can take him now. You can't leave Golden Boy with him. You can't. I love Golden Boy. Hal looked up, wincing.
Hey, Star Lady, he said. I'm spinning you straight. You want Hal cold?
If you won't do anything, she said. Yes. He shrugged.
I hum to you, Janey,
he said suddenly, staring at her with something that was almost fear. Wonderful, but you'll never see me again. She stood up. Give me your no-knife, Hal. If you won't try, I will.
They'll kill you, Star Lady, or worse. Root down and listen. You won't even find the Marquis.
Yes, I will, and he'll face me 1-on-1 too. You told me how, Hal. The Marquis is loud, remember? Well, me too. I stand in the middle of the Silver Plaza, and I shout for him until he comes. He can hardly have his black skulls gang up on me then. If he did, who'd ever get chilled again? Will you give me the no-knife?
No, he said stubbornly. You're wobbly.
All right, she replied, leaving. Night cycle in the plaza and the silver shining overheads were out. The wall lights provided a different illumination, winking through their color phases, alternately dyeing the faces of the revelers blue or red or green or violet. The dancers were out in force. Music was everywhere, and the air was thick with the sweet gaiety of joy smoke. On the polished stairway that curved up towards the second tier of shops, Starlady took her stand and began to spin. Hey! She called to the throngs below her, to the people pushing by. Hey! Stop and listen to me! You won't soon have the chance! The Marquis is going to kill me! Below, the off-worlders paused, curious, admiring. Whispers were exchanged. Prometheans shook their heads and grinned. And the swaggers in the swoop suits, the redheads out to sell, the drooling dreamers and the men who doled out dreams, the pimps, the bodyguards, the dancers and the thieves. Well, they knew what was going on. A show was coming. They stopped to watch. And Starlady spun. Starlady, with the shiny dark hair, in a suit of milky night white that took the colors of the lights. Starlady, with a black rod in her hand. Marquis took my lover, she shouted to the gathering crowd. He chilled down Hal and stole the Golden Boy, but he hasn't chilled down me. And now the no-knife in her hand was alive, its ghost blade flickering strangely in the violet light. And Starlady was sheathed in purple, her face stained grim and somber. I'll kill him if he comes, she said as they drew away around her, leaving her alone on the stairs. Me, Starlady, and I've never used a no-knife in my life. The plaza was growing quiet. Tension spread outward like ripples in a pool. Here the talking stopped. There the dancers ceased to whirl. Over in the corner, a Joyman killed his smoke machine. But he won't come! Not Marquis, and I'll tell you why. He's chilled. And now the light clicked over, and Starlady was a vision in green. The ghost blade a writhing bluish shadow. You've seen him kill Star Slummers, she said with a shake of emerald dark hair. And you've heard the wobbly spins, right? Marquis who hums to pain? Marquis, this rock's top stick? She threw back her head and laughed. Over on the far side of the plaza, they were muting their music and drifting her way. Well, think now. Have you ever seen him fight? Without his black skulls? Without Crawny? She pointed, and a man with a shiny striped skull straightened and glared and rushed towards the nearest corridor. And Stumblecat? She whirled the other way and picked him out, lounging against a food stall. And Stumblecat smiled and lifted his sting stick and waved. To hold the arms of his victim? The light clicked again, and she was bright blue and glowing, and the no-knife was suddenly invisible. Now the plaza was dead, still, captive to the Starlady. No, she shouted. You haven't. No one has. Straight spin. Remember what you see tonight. Watch when the Black Skulls come and take me. Watch how they hold my arms when Marquis kills me. And remember how he was too chilled to come alone. A murmur went through the throng, and eyes lifted, and Starlady turned and smiled. 2 black skulls were coming down the stairs behind her, their faces hard chalk blue. See, she told the crowd, I spun you straight. Only then someone bounded out of the audience below, a yellow-faced youth with sparkling circles on his head and a glittery gold-flaked swoop suit. He took the stairs 3 at a time, past her, and a sting stick was in his fist. He waved at the black skulls. No, no, he shouted, grinning. No grabs, sour sticks. I'm humming to a show. The black skulls drew their own sticks and prepared to take him, but then another swagger joined him, all aglow in dazzle silk. And then a third, and a fourth with a wicked white nerve lash, and others came running down behind them, sticks drawn. Out in the plains of the plaza, a dozen other black skulls found themselves surrounded. The mob wanted Marquis. And Starlady, shining crimson, stood and waited. And when she moved, the red reflections flashed in her hair like liquid fire, till another voice challenged hers. You spin a wobbly spin, Starlady, Harry Hal said from the foot of the stairs. They'd gone for him, of course. By now the news had rippled far beyond the Silver Plaza. Probably little Janie Small of Rhiannon hasn't seen the Marquis kill, but Harry Hal has. He's good, redhead, and Hal is going to watch while he teaches you how to scream. Heads turned, people murmured. Harry Hal? Well, wasn't he her lover? No, the answers came. She never hummed to him, so maybe his hum's gone sour. There's Harry Hal, Starlady called from her perch. Harry Hal, the quiet pimp, but you ought to call him Chilly Hal. Ask Mayless and she'll tell you. Ask me, too, about Golden Boy and Hal. Stumblecat, his sting stick sheathed, pushed his way forward and stood next to Hal. Hal's just smart, Janie, he said, smiling. You, sadly, are not. Though you are pretty. Maybe the Marquis will let you live and rent you out to nerve-lash freaks. Hal laughed coarsely. Yeah, Hal could hum to that. Her eyes flashed at him as the red light flickered to gold. Then, Marquis came. He walked easily, gracefully, swinging his sting stick and smiling. His eyes were lost behind their dark ring. Crawny scrambled beside him, trying to keep up. As if on signal, Stumblecat drew his stick and gestured. People pulled back, leaving a clear circle at the base of the stairway. A wall formed to keep onlookers out. Black Skulls and Starlady's swaggers working together. Starlady descended. Golden. The ring closed around her. Inside was only Crawny, Stumblecat, the Marquis, and Harry Hal. Plus her, plus Starlady. Or was it Janie Small from Rhiannon? The light went violet again. The Marquis smiled darkly, and Janie Small suddenly looked small indeed. She shifted her no-knife nervously from one hand to another, then back again. As they advanced, Stumblecat sidled up with Harry Hal. He grinned and lifted his sting stick, and jabbed Hal very lightly in the chest. Pain spark-wheeled out, and Hal winced. "Your no-knife, Hal," Stumblecat said. "On the ground."
"Hey, sure. Hal's on your side," he said.
His good hand reached under the cape, came out again, and dropped a dead knife to the floor.
"Straight spin, Stumblecat. Starlady needs a stinging. She never learned the rules, right?"
Stumblecat just smiled.
"Maybe," he said. "Maybe that's what you think."
He eyed Hal speculatively. His sting stick wandered under the corner of the cape, began to lift it. Then, suddenly, he glanced over at the Marquis, laughed, and changed his mind.
"They all saw me disarm you, Hal," he said, nodding.
Meanwhile, Janey circled, holding her no-knife out clumsily, trying to keep the Marquis at bay. He hadn't moved yet. He just grinned at her and waved his stick, like a snake preparing for the strike. When the light clicked from purple to green, she jumped, bringing the ghost blade down at his baton. One touch, cut it in half, and he was hers. She'd seen Hal do it oh so often, but the Marquis just flicked his stick back, blinking quick, and her no-knife severed air. Then it whirled forward again to brush her wrist. Janey screamed and pulled back. The no-knife rang upon the floor. She backed away. The Marquis followed.
"Not over, silly ship girl," he said to her softly as she clutched her wrist. "I'm going to chill you good, and hurt you, and teach you how things work. Come to me, Starlady."
And he darted at her, his sting stick brushing one cheek. She screamed again as an angry flush appeared. The Marquis had his stick set on maximum. He was cornering her, advancing towards her, herding her towards the ring of sting sticks that kept the crowd away. As he drifted in oh so slowly, the watchers pushed and shoved for better position. While inside the ring, Cronny and Stumblecat and Harry Hal followed behind him. Janey took one step too far backwards, came up against a stick, yelped, jumped forward again. The Marquis stroked her lovingly, down her side, and heard another scream. She rushed at him again, tried to grab the stick, screamed again as she finally caught it, and had to let go. He gave her another swat as she rushed past him and Hal and Stumblecat, towards the fallen no-knife. The Marquis swiveled and started to follow, but Hal stepped beside him then, and the Marquis shoved up against his cape. And cried a gurgling cry. And fell. It was quite an ordinary kitchen knife sticking through Hal's cape. Beneath, clutching it and trembling, a crodled, blackened hand. By then, Janey had recovered her no-knife. She finished the Marquis as he lay there bleeding. There were loud noises from the crowd. Stumblecat snarled and gestured, and suddenly the ring broke. The Black Skulls began swinging their sticks, and people shouted and shrieked and scattered. A few swaggers fought briefly before running, and Cronny was still standing, open-mouthed, while Stumblecat picked up Hal's no-knife, moved in behind him, and neatly slit his throat. There was only room for one emperor at a time. In the center of the chaos, Hal stood smiling. Janey knelt by the Marquis.
"Hey, Starlady," Hal said. "We did it. I did it. Now we can get back and buy our way down and—"
"I still don't have Golden Boy," she said coldly. Stumblecat walked over and smiled down at her.
"Ah, but you do. He doesn't seem to understand us. I think he had some sort of empathic link with you, or Hal, or both. Join us, Starlady, and you'll have him every night." "Hey!" Hal said, angrily.
"All right," said Janey. He looked at her shocked.
"Janey," he said, "you're spinning wobbly. I killed him for you, Starlady. My Starlady, like you wanted."
"That's what Malis wanted, Hal," she said, standing. "I just wanted Golden Boy, and I'm going to have him. He's not like the rest of you. He's still clean and kind. And I love him." She smiled.
"But," said Hal, "but Starlady, Hal hums, 'I love you.' What about me?"
"What about you?" Starlady said. And she went off with Stumblecat to find her Golden Boy. In the end, some of them were dead. The rest survived.